and congratulations to you. It is so amazing that you have taken 4 months of your daily lives to learn so much about our country and civics and what it means to us as a community. That's very important because sometimes people forget about our history, they forget about who we are, they forget about things that we should hold near and dear to us and that mean a lot to our everyday lives. So again, congratulations to you. My name is Melisa Garza, and I am a judge. I'm a Justice of the Peace for Las Vegas Township Justice Court, Department 15, which is actually a brand new department that just opened up here in Las Vegas. We get new judges and new departments depending on our population. So every time we hit a certain number, we say, okay, the judges aren't going to be able to handle this many more cases, therefore we need another judge. We need another judge. So I'm one of the judges that just came on very, very recently. And you're actually catching me at a very new time in my position. I just went through last week my investiture. Does anybody know what that is, an investiture? All right, well, an investiture is when you get sworn in. So I literally had a ceremony last week where I was sworn in and I had to take an oath. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but I want you to think about that, about maybe becoming a judge and what you have to do as a judge and having this oath that you might go through. Like was told to you, I've been an attorney, a judge, I guess, for 22 years. So I did grow up here. I came here because my dad was in the Air Force, so he was stationed out at Nellis Air Force Base. So I did a few years of my schooling out on the Air Force Base, but then we moved off and I went to Ira J. Earl, which is an elementary school on the east side, and as you were told, I went to El Dorado High School. Now I heard a lot of people saying, oh, where did she go to high school? Foreman High School. And yes, Foreman High School is a wonderful school. But here's what I want you guys to realize. You don't have to go to a private school to rise up and do wonderful things in our community. I went to a public school. You just need to go out there and work, and that's what it's all about. And you've already shown how much you can work and how much you can accomplish just in accomplishing this 4-month program. So, don't think, oh, if I didn't go to a private school or I didn't get this or I didn't get that, I can't make a difference, because you absolutely can. And that's one of the most important things for you to remember. I did go to, and I wanted to bring this up to you guys, so I want you to understand how sometimes civics and the law and all of these things that you're learning about affect your everyday life without you even realizing it. When I went to school, and I went through the 5th grade, like I said, at a public school, then for 6th grade, we used to have these things called 6th grade centers. They're now magnet schools, and I don't know if you guys, I was thinking about going through this 6th grade center when I was in 6th grade, and that's where you guys will be next year. I started thinking about why this came about. And so what happened when I went to school is that there was still segregation here in Las Vegas among our schools, which is hard to believe, because I'm thinking, like I'm late 70s when I was in the 6th grade, but you think about segregation where there's people, mainly African Americans in one school and mainly white people in another school. You wouldn't think that in 1978, 77, but that's where we were here in Las Vegas. So they came up with a plan to try and integrate those schools. And so what they did was took the schools that were in North Las Vegas and they bussed kids in that went to primarily white schools so that they could have some integration. And it was actually mandated by our circuit court, by our Ninth Circuit Court. And as a child, I didn't realize why that was happening. I didn't understand why I couldn't just go to my neighborhood school. I had to now be bused to, for me, it seemed like clear across town. But you know what? It was part of our beliefs that having segregations in schools wasn't right. Because if you had that, somehow the schools were still going to be unequal. So here we are, even in those days, having to deal with issues like that, even though we might not understand that. So that's great that you guys are learning about these types of things. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is elections. So here in Nevada, we elect our judges. In some other states, people are actually appointed. And there's pros and cons to both of those things. But here we're elected. So you have our Nevada Supreme Court, they're elected, our appellate court, our district court, and our justice court, which I'm part of, and our municipal court judges are all elected by the people. And that's where you guys come in when you start hitting 18. In fact, I was very proud to have one of my friend's daughters who literally turned 18 right before the primary, and she was able to vote. And she said, you know, it was really awesome to be able to go into that voting booth and vote for somebody I know, and to actually make a difference. And she did that, which I hope and I encourage all of you to do that, because you've been learning about how important that is. So let me point out, I'm going to have a sip of water, sorry. I'm going to point out something to you guys about voting. And I want you to really take this to heart. I'm going to throw out a few numbers, but believe me, it's not really a math class, because, you know, there's a reason I went to law school, and I'm not a math person. Although you guys are here at Math and Science, so you might be better at it than I am. So, here in Las Vegas, we have a rule that says if you get 50% of the vote at the primary, so you have your primary elections, then you have your general, right? You guys know all about that? Right, okay. So you have your primary elections. If you get 50% plus one vote, you win right there. You don't even have to go to the general, because they feel like you're so far ahead here, there's no sense of going and having to do this primary, I meant the general election. So I was very fortunate, very fortunate. I won at the primary. I got 50% of the vote plus one. In fact, I got 51.95, which I'll tell you, a lot of people didn't believe I could do, because there were 4 of us in the race. So getting that 50% really was a big deal. But I want you to think about this. I'm in Las Vegas Township, right? So we have a population of about 550,000 people. That's just in Las Vegas, that little cutout part, 550,000 people. But how many people actually voted? We only had a turnout of 20%. So of all the people that could have voted, 550,000, only 110,000 voted. And then out of that, if you figure I got 50% of that, I got just over 50,000, right? I got about 57,000. So only 10% of our population, of the people that could have voted and voted for the winner. But that shows you how important it is to go out there and vote, and how important your voice is. Because only 10% of our population out there pick that winner. So I hope that you kind of take that to heart and understand how important your vote is when you're out there and when you guys become adults. And that's all part of your learning process that you're going through today, and have been going through for the last 4 months. Now, I told you a few minutes ago, I took an oath, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that said, and then I'll stop. But I had to say, I'll support, protect, and defend the Constitution and the government of the United States, and the Constitution and the government of the state of Nevada. And I literally had to say it, and I will protect it against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign, and I will bear true faith, allegiance, and loyalty to the same. So I wake up every morning, and I think that's an oath I had to take. And hopefully one day some of you will be taking that same oath, either as a judge, or maybe even as the President of the United States, or somebody who's in Congress, somebody who's part of our legislature. But I want you to think about that, standing up and saying that. I pledge allegiance to that Constitution, because you guys have learned about the Constitution and what that means to us, right? You've learned that that's about your rights and all of those things, and that's why you do learn these things, because it does affect your everyday life. Now, like I told you, I do battery domestic violence cases. So that's a criminal case, right? And in criminal cases, you have the person that's accusing somebody of a crime, and then you have that person that's accused of the crime, which we call a defendant, right? Every day, defendants come into our criminal cases, and we have to worry about what? Their constitutional rights. We don't live in a land that says, just because you're accused, you're guilty. We don't say that. We don't believe in that. And that's one of the great things that you've learned. Can somebody come in front of me and just say, you know what, he battered somebody? And I go, you know what, you're right. He's going to jail. No. He has rights. And we value those rights, and we look at those every single day in how we conduct those hearings, and how we conduct our court processes, all of these things. So it does affect how we act every single day. Even police officers. I brought my marshal here today, Mr. Richardson, right? And even they think about your constitutional rights every day. Your mom and dad are out driving you down the street, bringing you to school today. Could a police officer just pull them over and take your car? No, right? Could they just say, you know what, I'm going to take this little boy and he's going to go to jail? Or, you know what, somebody across the street told me your mom did something wrong and we're just going to put her in jail, right? Those things don't happen here because we have things like the Constitution. And that's why it's important that you know those things and that you learn those things. And you have. And I can't tell you how proud I am that your school has made that decision to put you through this 4-month program. It's rigorous, you know, and I hope you did. I know you were asked, did you have fun? Did you like this? And I really hope you did, because it's important. These things are woven into your everyday lives. And so when you're standing up as a citizen each day, as somebody that gets pulled over by the police one day, as somebody who might even be accused of something or accuse somebody else of something, understand you have that knowledge and that power to know this is the way the process should work. This is the way things should happen. Because we hold those things near and dear to us as a country. And I want you to even think of how we started the morning, saying that we pledge allegiance. Why do we pledge allegiance? I know that sometimes we say these words and we don't even think about what they mean. But we're pledging allegiance to our country. We're saying we believe in this country, that personally I think it's the greatest country there is. And every day, people sometimes ask me, you know, you've been in this system for 22 years. Are you jaded? Do you think it doesn't work? Would I want to be in the system? No, I wouldn't want to be accused of something. I wouldn't want to be in the system, but I believe in the system, and I believe that it works. And hopefully, in going through your training that you have, you believe that it works too. And you do feel like you're at a point where you're proud to pledge allegiance. Even these guys that stood up here today singing the Star Spangled Banner, I might be a complete geek, but every time I hear the Star Spangled Banner, I literally get goosebumps. And maybe that's true because I know what it stands for, like you guys know what it stands for. And for me, I think it's especially close and it's close to my heart because my dad was in the Air Force. And my dad did go to war. And so I feel like my dad went out there and fought for these things that we believe in. And so every time I hear that, I think, you know what, that's what my dad went out and fought for. And these are the things that we find important. So when you stand up each morning and you say that Pledge Allegiance, think about what you're saying. because it is important. You know, and I know that you guys even learned about that inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Think of all the discussions that are going on right now. And I'm not going to get too political. I don't want to do that. But I want you to think about all the discussions that we're having right now about our border walls and our immigrants and things like that. Think about that inscription that you learned. Can somebody tell me what it says? I think it might have even been in your program. I glanced through it. Does somebody want to tell me how it starts off? Right? Okay. I know, you guys are shy, right? But what is it saying? It's saying to give me you're tired and you're poor.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we were built on, and that's why now we have this controversy. And that's all I'm going to say is that it's a controversy. Because, you know, right now we're at a position where we're saying, well, maybe we don't want everybody's tired, we don't want everybody's poor, but yet that's part of our foundation. And so now it's like, do we need to change that foundation up a little bit? Maybe yes, maybe no. Again, I'm not here to get political, but what I want you to understand is these are the things that you've learned about. This is our foundation, this is our history. And now you can even see today how that's affecting everyday lives. How it affected, maybe your parents worked for the government. Maybe your parents were as part of that shutdown. But that affects our everyday lives, these things that you've been learning. And so, again, I hope you're taking them to heart, because the one thing that I'm sure, well, I hope that you've heard, is if you don't know your history, you're sure to repeat it. Right? And sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it's not such a good thing. We need to learn from that history. We need to know our foundations so that we know where we're going. And we know what we want to fight for. And in you learning about our great America, you might now say, this is worth fighting for, this isn't. And we all create our opinions based on our education, based on the things that we've experienced. But at least now you can say, I have that education. I have that knowledge, and it's going to make a difference in who you become and what you strive for. And that's why your teachers are to be commended for having you learn these things. Your parents, your family. I'm sure there were nights where you were sitting there with either your mom or your dad or maybe your grandma and grandpa saying, okay, I got to memorize this, right? And they were like, okay, what's this line? What's this line? And you were going through things. And so they've made these sacrifices for you, but they did it because they knew it was important, right? And now you know how important it is. So again, I commend you for going through this program, for learning your history, because it does make a difference, and it is going to make a difference in your everyday lives. It's going to make a difference even with me standing here. Like I said, how many people voted? How many people said you're the one versus he's the one versus she's the one? You guys can make those decisions, and you know how important it is. So, with that, again, I just want to congratulate you. Does anybody have any questions? About what I do each day or anything? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's do you ever, have you ever made, a mistake and ever, while making a decision as a judge? Do you ever
I make a mistake every day. Every single day I make mistakes. But here's what you do. You learn from those mistakes. Of course you do. And every day I go home and I say, is that what I should have done? But what the important thing is that you prepare as much as you can, you learn as much as you can, and then you try to remember that you want to make the decision that's going to be the right decision, because you know that it's going to affect somebody's everyday life. If I said, sir, you're going to go to jail today, I have to think about the fact that he might lose his job, He might then become homeless. He might then lose his family. Maybe his family has to go into, live with other family, or go into a shelter, or anything like that. And then I also have to balance that with maybe the person that he's accused of hitting, or kicking, or battering in some way. Are those people in danger? So every day I kind of balance those things out. And some days I think, it was a little bit more this way, so I went that way, but then sometimes you think, should I have gone the other way? So yeah, I make mistakes, and we all make mistakes. But the important thing is to learn from those mistakes, right? And to make the best decisions you can based on the information you have in front of you. Yes, sir?